Okay, so welcome back. This is part 2 of installing Oracle Forms and Reports version 12.2.1.4. So by now you should have gone through part 1, which was installing a lot of the prerequisite software, which if you went through part 1, you realize it was kind of a daunting task to get to this point. Well, I got great news for you. It's even more of a daunting task from this point on. So what we did in the first step is we installed the JDK, we installed Weblogic server, we installed Oracle Forms and Reports software, and we created the base repository connecting to our 19C database. What we're going to do in this step is the actual configuration, where we configure the base domain, we configure the Weblogic server, we set everything up so that it runs properly, and then we're going to start and test Node Manager, Weblogic server, and Oracle Forms server. Last step is then to configure Oracle Forms. Now, we're not going to go too deep into the configuring of Oracle Forms because I have other videos on developing Oracle Forms and configuring Oracle Forms for your own private environment. It's going to be part of that video. So let's get started by going over to our server. And the first thing we need to do is start a command prompt. So I'm going to start a command prompt as administrator. And now we need to go to the directory to get started. So we're going to start at Oracle Home. So that is cd the Oracle middleware. Guess I do need my glasses. Oracle middleware and Oracle _home. And then from there, we're going to go to Oracle Common, bin. So we're at Oracle Home, Oracle Common, bin. So if we look in here, there should be a file called config.cmd. So I do a directory to see that it's there, and there is config.cmd. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by running config.cmd. So I'm going to just type in config.cmd. Okay, and this is going to start the configuration of our base domain. So this is going to take a couple seconds to get started. Everything in this install takes a little while, and there's a lot of steps. So hopefully in part 1, when you installed everything, you used the same naming convention that I used, because this way we're gonna, when I type in these big long directory strings, it's going to be the same directory. So we're bringing up the configuration wizard. And then from here, what we're going to do is we're going to configure the base Weblogic server. Okay, and I'm probably going to have to fast forward and speed through a couple of these steps, because even the step of launching the configuration window takes a couple minutes. Okay, so here we are. So we're in the Fusion middleware configuration wizard, and we're on page 1 of 8. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new domain, and we're not going to change anything. So this is going to create a domain that's under Oracle Home called User Projects Domains Base Domain, because we're creating the base domain. Now the next thing we got to do is choose what we're going to install. So in this case, we want to make sure that we're installing Oracle Forms, Oracle Reports, Oracle HTTP server in the co-located OHS directory. We don't want the restricted one. And then down at the bottom, we need to make sure that Oracle, that the Oracle JRF in Oracle Common has been installed. And then there should be one more, which is the Coherence Cluster extension. So this is everything. So again, we've got checked Oracle Forms, Oracle Reports, Oracle Enterprise Manager, Oracle HTTP server under co-located, Oracle Reports tools, and then Oracle JRF and Weblogic Coherence Cluster extension. So then we're going to hit next. And again, we've got the little waiting bubble up here, so we are moving. So don't, if the installation looks like it hangs, it doesn't. It's doing a lot of different things. All right, so our domain name is our base domain, our domain location. We're going to leave the application location where it is, and we're going to click Next. Okay, now at this point, we need to create a password for our Weblogic server. Now, I'm going to use the same password that I used in the previous step to create the schemas inside of Weblogic, just because it's less passwords to remember. So in this case, I'm doing Weblogic with a capital W, 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to go here and type in Weblogic, 1, 2, 3. Oh, did I put an exclamation point at the end? Okay. One special character. So it's going to be Weblogic, exclamation point. Weblogic, exclamation point. Okay, so I'm going to hit next. Okay, now our choices here for domain mode are development or production. There's pros and cons to both. In this case, I'm going to run it as production, even though it is going to be our development environment. It's a pretty, weak box, so I don't really. One of the things that development does is it does constant polling for automatic deployment. So in this case, I'm just going to select. I'm actually going to select the production, and then we've got the right location here for. Let me make sure. Oh, we're just going to hit next. Okay, now, at this point, we are looking to connect to a database. So we're going to use the RCU data, and our host name is the server that we created when we installed Oracle 19i. So I called the database name database. And we have the service name of Oracle, and then our schema password is Weblogic123. And then I'm going to click on Get RCU Configuration. That is connecting to the database, retrieving all the schema information. So this was their first big test stumbling point where something could go wrong, making sure that you can connect to your database, okay? I'm happy to say that in our case, we got it right this time. This might be a place you spend a couple of minutes debugging if you don't set up everything the way we did in the videos. All right, so once that's done, we're going to click Next. And then it's doing, let me make sure here. Okay, so according to my notes, we've done our JDBC test. We're going to just hit next until we get to page, data source is invalid. And get RCU configuration. I'm going to go to next. I'm going to click on this component schema and then click next. JDBC data source validations failed. Okay, so it's asking me here to connect again. So we're going to put in database as my host name, ORCL is my DBMS server, schema owner, I'm going to actually click off of this and then just go next. JDBC source validation failed. Okay, so we've got our RCU configuration, and then we click Next. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we want to check our schemas. So so our host name is database, our DBMS service name is ORCL, and then our schema owner is, I don't know who our schema owner is. And this is where we pause.
I got this glucose.
Use Weblogic server installation directory inside.
Oracle Home directory path from the inside a virtual machine, repository, and the service name. And your sys log. Oracle Home, Oracle Common, Common, bin. Copy the path from the file manager and we're going to create a new domain, so just press next. For this forms installation, ensure you have these options checked. Please take special care to note down your Weblogic password. You will need this later.
Okay, this is the sync point for config.cmd. Okay, so at this point, we are now in Oracle Common, Common bin, and we're going to type in config.cmd. Okay, so this is going to bring up the configuration wizard. This doesn't load extremely fast, so and it's up. Okay, so the thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new domain. So we're going to use the defaults here. So we're going to create our new domain as user projects domain base domain. And then I'm going to click on next. Okay, so now the next step is we need to install the stuff that we need to install. We need to make sure that we have it checked here. So we're going to install Oracle Forms, Oracle Reports application, Oracle HTTP server, and then Oracle JRF, which is already selected, and then Oracle Weblogic Coherence Cluster extension. Okay, so we've got everything that we need there, and we're going to click Next. And at this point, it's just kind of loading things up. And the next step is we're going to choose the application location, and that's just we're going to use the default there when we finally do get there. Okay, so now our application location, we're going to just do the default. We're going to put in applications-based domain, and we're going to click on Next. Now, at this point, we're going to create a password for our Weblogic server. We need to remember this. We're going to use this a lot. So I'm going to use capital Weblogic 123 exclamation point. Okay, and then we do next. Okay, so now it wants to connect, or now it wants us to select a domain mode. In this case, we're going to choose production. There's arguments for development and there's arguments for production. We're going to go with production because it's a little bit more lightweight. It doesn't have a lot of overhead, and this isn't the most powerful box in the world that I'm installing it on. So I've decided to select production. Then I'm going to hit next. Okay, now we need to go to that 19C database that we created in another video and get the connection and get the RCU configuration. So we called our hostname database. It's ORCL. And then our schema password is what we created when we ran rcu.bad. That's Weblogic 123. I'm going to click on Get RCU configuration. And the fact that we got these OKs is great news. So we now know that we can establish a connection from our Fusion middleware to our Oracle database. Okay, so we're going to start at when we click Get RCU Configuration. Okay, so we click Get RCU Configuration, and that's going to connect to the database, and it's going to retrieve the information that we created when we ran rcu.bat in the previous video. So now we're going to connect next, and as long as all your schema passwords have loaded correctly, then you're going to click Next again. Now, if any of these schema passwords are missing, you need to go back and rerun rcu.bat to make sure that every one of these things has a schema password. This is a common problem. I've actually had a situation where I've had to run rcu.bat several times. You need to make sure that it's got the correct schema owner and that there needs to be a password. Okay, so then from there we're going to click Next, and we're going to click Next again. Now, what we want to collect on the advanced configuration, what we want to do on page 9 is we want to select topology and system components. Okay, and then from there, we're going to just keep going forward until we get to page 17. Okay, now all of that has to do the going to page 17 only works properly if you selected just the topology and the system components. If you selected more items in those checkboxes, this isn't where you're going to want to be. It won't be page 17. But what the page is, it's assign servers to machines. So what we want to do is click on the admin server, then click on the other side, click on the admin server machine, and then you hit the right chevron. And that's going to add the WLS reports and the WLS forms over to this machine. Okay, so then we're going to hit Next. And then we're not going to create any virtual targets. We're not going to create any partitions. And now we're on page 20. Now at this point, we need to add another component, another system component. We're going to add OHS. Now OHS is the Oracle HTTP server, and we need that for a lot of reasons. So I'm going to click Add, and then I'm going to call it OHS1, and the component type is going to be OHS. And then we're going to click Next. Okay, so now we are going to enter a listener address. Now the listener address here is the listener address of the box we're working on. It's not the listener address of my database. So I'm going to type in localhost. And then, so that means the server name is going to actually be localhost 7777. Okay, and then we're going to click Next again. Okay, so now on page 22, we need to select the OHS1 server on the left, and I'm just checking my notes here because I don't want to make a mistake, and then the admin server on the right. Let's figure out where this goes. Okay, I need to click OHS server and admin server. Okay, so if I click OHS server and admin server, that's what's going to highlight this right chevron. So now I'm going to click Yes. Okay, so now we've added the OHS1 server to our system component, to our machine. Okay, and then we're going to click Next. Okay, this is the list of everything that we're going to install. So now we're at the point where we're going to do the create. Now this could take a couple minutes. We hit create, and now it is processing. Okay, so it is completed, and I click Next to get to where we've created our Oracle Weblogic server. So now I'm at the point where I can just click Finish. Okay. Okay, so the next step is part of configuring the servers now that we have got, we're to this point. So it requires making some directories. So we're going to go to CD. I've got an administrator command prompt open, so this is kind of where you should be at this point. So I'm going to do the CD Oracle middleware, Oracle home, Oracle middleware. Got a CD to Oracle home, And then now we're going to go to CD to user projects. Then we're going to do a CD to domains, then a CD to base domain. Okay, and now we need to create a couple of directories. So we're going to do a make dir servers to get started, and then I'm going to CD into the servers. Okay, then we're going to do a make dir admin server security. Okay, and then we're going to do a make dir to WLS forms security, and then a make dir for WLS reports security. Okay, so we've now what we've done is we've created a servers directory and then these 3 directories underneath it. So I know this is a lot of manual work. They do not make this installation easy. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to CD into admin server security. And then we need to create a file called boot properties. So I'm going to do notepad boot.properties. Okay, and so we're going to create a new file. And then all we're putting in here is the username and the password. So our username, Weblogic, and then password, Weblogic123. Now there's no space at the end of these lines. So then I'm going to hit save. Okay, so we've just added it to admin server. Now I want to do save as, and then WLS forms and security. So we're adding it to there, and then we're going to save it as, we're going to go back to WLS reports, security, and then we're going to save it there. So at this point we have created this boot properties file in 3 directories. So it's in admin server security, WLS form security, and WLS reports security. So we've got that saved, and so we can get on to the next step, which is to, as I check my notes, starting up the servers. So I'm going to close this notepad, and I'm going to open a file explorer. So in this file explorer, we are going to go to Oracle middleware. So let me get back to there. We're going to go to C, Oracle middleware, Oracle home, user projects, domains, base domain, bin. Okay, another all the way down the rabbit hole. So the next thing we're going to do is start node manager. We're going to go to start node manager .cmd. Start node manager right here, Windows command. We're going to right click and run as administrator. Okay, so this might take a couple seconds to get started. So what we're doing here is we're starting the node manager. Now once we go through all this process and we get it started, then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start the Weblogic server. Okay, so once this is started, we're going to minimize that command and we're going to start the Weblogic server. So this time it's going to be start weblogic.cmd. So again, we're going to right click and run as administrator. Okay, so these are some commands that you're going to need to know because you're going to when your box reboots, you're going to need to restart this part. So going into the base domain, now you can create some batch jobs to start everything that you need to start, but for now what we're going to do is we're just starting it manually. So now it's going through that process, and while it's doing that, we might as well open up a command prompt to get to the next step. So we need an administrator, so I'm going to find an administrator command prompt, which we had one open. When we were creating the boot properties files, and then at this point, we need to go to that directory we were in. So it's user projects domain base domain bin. So I'm going to cd back to that. Okay, so in this directory, what we want to run is start Weblogic CMD, and then we're going to run WLS forms. So we're going to type in start Weblogic. Make sure I spell this right. It's start managed. So we're going to type in. All right, let me just do this right. We're going to start managed Weblogic.cmd and then WLS forms. And that's going to start up. This will also take a couple of seconds to load. Okay, so at this point, it is not using our boot .properties file, which I was afraid might be one of the issues of putting this in production mode. So to boot the WebLogic server, we want to use WebLogic. Okay, so in this case, we did have, the first time we ran this, we got Windows Defender Firewall block some features. We do want to allow Java platform to get access. So I'm going to click on both public and private networks and hit allow access. Okay, so now I'm back to WLS forms. So the username to boot the WebLogic server is WebLogic, and then the password we created was WebLogic123, and that is going to start up the WebLogic server. Now at this point, I would do that same thing to start up the WLS reports, but we've still got a couple more steps we need that is probably going to require a reboot, so I'm just not going to bother doing that at this point. So once everything is started, and it's now starting up the WLS forms, and I'm going to minimize where I had the WebLogic server. Okay, so now we've got the WLS forms server is running. Okay, so our next trick is going to be to test the form builder. Now, the form builder can have its problems, so we want to go to Oracle Home Bin. So we're going to go up here to Oracle Form, Oracle Home, and then into Bin. Okay, and then we are going to open formbuild.exe. Okay, so here is formbuild.exe, and we're going to right-click on it. Now, before I get too far with this, I'm going to tell you there's going to be an error that pops up, and I'm just going to, because there's a couple of errors that we're going to need to resolve. Now, I'm going to resolve one of them here, and then I'm going to resolve any other ones that have to do with class path. I'm going to do those in the video for getting started with Oracle Forms. So we're going to hit Run as Administrator. It's going to let me run Form Builder, and it's going to give us an error. A code execution cannot proceed because MSVCR100.dll was not found. And that is because we are missing a redistributable package that was required back in the day, but isn't, it was required, and it doesn't come as part of Windows or the other package that we installed. So I am going to go to Microsoft Edge, and I'm going to search for Microsoft Visual C++ 2010 SP1 redistributable. And this is going to take us to Service Pack 1 redistributable. Now, we need to download and install this package. So we're going to go here, and it is in English. So we click download. We want the x64 version, and then we're going to click next. Okay, so it's a small file, brings it down pretty fast. Now I want to click to open it, and then click yes. And I'm going to accept the terms of the license agreement and install it. Now, I normally reboot now, but because for the sake of time, I don't want to go through the whole process of rebooting and then starting everything back up again. So we're going to just go back to where we were and see if we can start Form Builder as administrator. I'm going to run Form Builder. And now we're opening Fusion Middleware Forms Developer. The error I expect to see now is the class path error. And that, there's a couple ways to solve this. One is to solve it with a batch file. And in perfect Oracle form, this time I did the install, I did not get the class path error. The last time I did the install, I installed exactly the same thing, exactly the same way, and I got an error for class path. Go figure. So I'm happy that we got to this point, but just this is a perfect example of why when you do these installs, it's just wild. But I have a working form builder, which is the point this is the place we were trying to get to, is to have a working form builder. Okay, so now that I've got a working form builder, which I'm thoroughly excited about, I'm going to close out my browser, and we need to launch Enterprise Manager. So I'm going to open up my browser again. Shouldn't have even closed it. I'm going to go to localhost and then 7001. That's localhost 7001 / Enterprise Manager EM, and hit enter. Now, this is a somewhat seriously underpowered computer that I'm on. So Oracle Enterprise Manager is taking a while to load up. Now it's loaded up. We're going to type in Weblogic, then our password, and then we're going to sign in. This is taking a while to load up, so I'm going to speed up through this. Don't be too shocked when Enterprise Manager takes a while to load, especially if you don't have 16 to 64 gig of RAM. Okay, now we have our server is up. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is there's a navigation button. That's not it, or maybe it is. We click on the navigation button, and then we want to go to HTTP server, go to OHS1. This is our Oracle HTTP server. We click on that, and then we want to click on Startup, because as of right now, the HTTP server is not up. So we're going to start the HTTP server. And it's processing, it's doing its startup, and it has succeeded. So we have a working OHS server. I'm going to close that. Okay, so now we have our OHS server up. So our next step is actually going to be to configure Oracle Forms. I promise you we are getting near the end. Okay, so I'm going to go back into one of my, do I not have an open admin server? Okay, so I'm going to open up a new CMD file. Actually, I'm going to do this in Windows Explorer. So we're going to go to Oracle Middleware, Oracle Home, Forms, Templates, Config. And we have a file that we're going to edit called forms.cfg. So I'm going to go here, I'm going to right click on it to edit it. Oops. I'm going to say open with Notepad. Okay, so now that it's open, what I need to do is come down here at the bottom, and we need to put in the configuration for forms. Now, that is right up here where it says location forms. And what we need to do is just uncomment these, from the beginning of the forms to the end of the forms. The set handler should be Weblogic handler. The Weblogic host is admin server host. Notice admin server and host are all capitalized, and then our port is 7001. Okay, so now I want to save that file. Okay, now we have to copy it. Okay, so we need to copy this forms.config to a really far away place. So I'm going to click on it. I'm going to hit Control C, and then we're going to go to Oracle Middleware, Oracle Home, and then we're going to go to User Projects, Domains, Base Domain, Config, FMW config, Components, OHS, Instances, and I'm not kidding, this is a hell of a directory. And then, make sure I got my notes right, module config, and then paste, Control V. So now we have forms.conf in this directory. So I'm laughing a little bit because, let's be honest, this is a heck of an install. All right, so now that we have it there, we need to restart the server. So we're back here. Now, keep in mind, we're back on OHS 1. We're not restarting the entire server. We're just restarting OHS 1. So I'm going to come over to here, and I'm going to click Restart. Do I want to restart? I say yes. Okay, so now it is starting. Operation status, it says the restart has continued. Okay, and now you see we have some stuff in our virtual hosts. The last thing we have to do is to test that Forms actually worked. So I'm going to open up a new browser window. Now keep in mind that you don't run Oracle Forms 12c from a browser, so you don't need to run it this way, but this is an easy way to test. So I'm going to go to HTTP localhost 9001, and then port 9001, and then forms, FRM servlet, and then config equal web start. And a lot of times the web start part doesn't actually work, and it's just going to download a file for me. So I'm going to hit enter. Okay, the collection for this site is not secure. It should be HTTP. Okay, so this is what it's doing every time. It is bringing down that servlet as a file. But when I click open file, I get a, do you want to run this application, because it's Java, and I'm going to mark it so it never asks me that again. And I click run, and there we are. Okay, so if I run it again, I should not get that Java message. I'll just click one of these others. And there we are. Okay, we have successfully installed Oracle Fusion middleware, Weblogic server, Oracle Forms and Reports, and configured Oracle Forms. That is an interesting install, I have to admit. Now, as far as our Oracle development environment goes, our next step is going to be to install HTTPS server, Oracle Apex, and ORDS, Oracle REST Data Services. We're going to install that on our 19C database, because that's an architecture that is very common, where you're doing your Oracle you're doing your Oracle Apex actual development on a box that has a database. So that concludes this video, and we'll see you on the next video.